It was a dark and eerie night in the woods, and a group of friends had set up campfire in a clearing. The crackling flames cast flickering shadows on the surrounding trees, making everything seem otherworldly. As they sat around the fire, telling scary stories, one of them spoke up. "I've got a story for you that will give you chills down your spine," he said, his voice low and ominous. The others leaned in closer, eager to hear the tale. And so he began. "Legend has it that deep in these woods, there was once a group of settlers who had a secret to keep. They were part of a cult that worshipped an ancient deity, and they made sacrifices to appease it. One day, a group of outsiders stumbled upon the cult's hidden altar in the woods. The settlers were furious, believing that their secret had been exposed. They decided to take matters into their own hands and rid themselves of the outsiders once and for all. The outsiders were never seen again, and the settlers resumed their dark rituals. But it wasn't long before strange things began to happen in the woods. People reported hearing eerie chanting in the dead of night, and some claimed to have seen ghostly figures lurking among the trees. But the most terrifying thing of all was the sound of a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the woods every night at the stroke of midnight. No one knew where it came from, but some said it was the spirit of one of the sacrificed outsiders, seeking revenge. The campers sat in stunned silence, the hair on the back of their necks standing on end. Suddenly, they heard a twig snap in the darkness behind them, and they turned to see a shadowy figure looming in the trees. They scrambled to their feet and ran as fast as they could, but they could still hear the ghostly scream ringing in their ears. As they reached the edge of the woods, they looked back to see the figure disappear into the darkness, leaving them to wonder if the legend was true after all. The campers never returned to that clearing, too afraid to encounter the spirit of the sacrificed outsider again. And to this day, the eerie scream can still be heard echoing through the woods at the stroke of midnight. "I've never told anyone about that before," the young woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I swear it's true. There's something out there in these woods, and I don't think we're alone tonight." As if on cue, a rustling sound came from the darkness beyond the campfire, and the campers huddled together, clutching their blankets tightly. Was it just an animal, or was it something more sinister? They stayed up the rest of the night, listening intently to the sounds of the forest, afraid to close their eyes and fall asleep. And in the morning, they packed up their things and left the forest, never to return again. Warm summer night, and a group of friends had decided to camp out in the middle of a vast and isolated forest. They set up their tents and built a campfire, eager to spend the night telling stories and enjoying each other's company. As the night wore on, they shared stories of ghosts and ghouls, of haunted houses and cursed objects. But one of the campers, a quiet and reserved young woman, remained silent throughout the night. Finally, as the others were getting ready to call it a night, she spoke up. "I have a story to tell you, but it's not like the others," she said, her voice trembling slightly. The other campers looked at her with interest, curious to hear what she had to say. "This story is about something I experienced when I was a child," she began. "My family and I used to go camping in this same forest every summer. One night, when I was about 8 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't fall back asleep. I sat up in my tent and looked out into the darkness. That's when I saw it." "Saw what?" asked one of the campers, leaning in closer. "It was a figure, a dark shape standing just beyond the edge of the campfire's light," she continued. "It was tall and thin, and it had glowing eyes that seemed to be staring right at me." The other campers gasped in surprise, their eyes wide with fear. "I was paralyzed with fear, but I couldn't take my eyes off of it," the young woman went on. "It didn't move, didn't make a sound. It just stood there, watching me. And then, just like that, it was gone." The other campers sat in stunned silence, unsure of what to say.